Alright, so I'm back doing some landscaping again while I wait for my hub motor to come from China. So I'll get onto that probably in a month's time. In the meantime, I'm going to, I guess, show you guys how to build a Gabion cage for some retaining walls, just using some spirals. I haven't used the C-clamps or anything like that, or just wire. I found these very easy. I've done that one at the bottom and a few others. And so I just want to go up another 40 centimeters onto this one over here. So I thought, well, might as well show you how easy it is to make some Gabion cages and fill them up with some rocks for retaining. Pretty handy if you don't have easy access and for machinery, anything like that, and to dig footings. The only thing is obviously getting in rocks can be a little bit problematic, but yeah, so I'm going to do 40s by 35s just because of what I have left over from the previous job. So yeah, so I'm going to cut these up and then we'll spiral them together. I'll have some, instead of using braces in the middle of the cages, I'm just going to make actual square pieces to brace out of it. So normally with the bigger cages you have bracing wires in the middle, just so you'd have a 1 meter cage and you'd have some sides instead of having the braces. Because it's a small cage, I'm just going to make 1 meter or maybe even 50 centimeter sections, and that way be pretty strong and do the job. Run some geotextile or geofabric underneath, and then yeah, should be right. So I'll get these cut up into sections, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, so I've cut up all the pieces I need. So these are sort of the square pieces that I'll be using instead of using bracing wire. So these will go on the ends of the boxes obviously, and then everywhere in between. So like I say, normally you would put bracing wire from one end to the other one on the bigger boxes. This sort of negates that requirement. But obviously when you're doing bigger boxes, you're not going to waste heaps of this mesh to try and do the same thing. You would just use the bracing wire, and those you can either just buy or the actual braces designed for them, or you can make your own out of normal wire. So when you buy this, when you do your measurements, you have to just remember that if you cut over there, then obviously you lose that section over there. So if you've got a 1 meter length and you want to do two 50 centimeter pieces out of it, well, you can't, because if you cut, then you fundamentally lose that stretch over there. So you just keep that in mind when you do your measurements. It can be an easy mistake. So yeah, so I'm going to lay them down, and I'm just going to build from the bottom up, and get into how those spirals fit in, which is pretty simple. The spirals aren't as attractive probably as the little C clamps, but when you see how easy they are, so if you're not worried about how they look visually, some people are probably okay with it, but you know, it's just a whole lot easier. You'll see what I mean. So let me set that up, and then we'll get busy on the spirals. Alright, so these are the spirals. To be honest, I don't think they're much more expensive than buying actual wire. So just a spiral, just put it in to the first one, and what you do is get it started. just can't eat it away at your hands after a while, so some gloves on. If you're struggling, just move these a little bit around, and then you'll find you get a point where they move a bit smoother. So as you can see, if you get it right, you feed it right from the beginning. You can feed one all the way through. This is 2.4 meters, and sometimes you just got to give it a shake so that you can get past the next piece of steel. And right, so the next piece, so I've got these connected, and those panels are a little bit of a different length. So I only needed 4.3 meters. So these are 2.4s and those are 1.9s. I'm going to put up the sides, and so each side, and then put the squares, you know, as support. So let's do this. Sometimes just easier cutting the first piece, the size. Okay. Once you got the support up, then and everything's not dangling around as much, things go a lot easier. So I'll come back and I'll pinch these in with the pliers at a later stage. So what we'll do is, instead of putting that side up yet, I'll put all the pieces in the middle and then bring it up, and that way you don't have to try and wedge them in while you're trying to in between the two sides. I think it'll be easier. This bottom one. Thing you have to remember if you're joining your boxes, that you can, when you do your last panel, well, that panel has to obviously fit in with the next cage, and that's why it's always better to try and build these as close as possible, or in pieces, and then bring them up and join them. But I can't put in that last panel until I've laid out the others, because the bottom has to fit onto that one. So you're essentially putting 3 together instead of just 2 in this case. So 1, 2, then you'd have 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, so I'm just going to join that one. Obviously the lid goes on last, and we just run one on the lid so we can just flap it over, put the rocks in, flap it back in, and close it up. So I'm going to do that one. I'll move the cages and then get the next panel in, and I think what I might do is, instead of putting it over here, I might just put it in place and actually build it in the location I want it. But before I need to do that, I need to put some geofab on there, and yeah. Alright, let's do this. Alright, so made two mistakes, much of the same. I've got to spiral the bottom panel onto the sides first, and so I had to come back and do them afterwards, which is a lot harder because you don't have as much movement to wiggle it around, and it helps to wiggle it. And so the second one was a little bit easier because I hadn't put up all the sides or fastened them yet. And then also the middle piece between this side and that side, I spiraled in ahead of joining them, so I unspiral that one and redo it. And so that happens, that's okay. So I'll put the lid on and I'll just run a spiral on this side over here. That way it sort of functions as a lid, and then it'll be ready to, put some rocks in, and once the rocks are in, we'll spiral everything closed, and then we'll be done. So let's do that. Not yet, why not? So I'm all done with the wall, and as you can see, I've put the spirals on the top to close off the top. They are quite important because obviously they prevent the cage from bulging any further, so you don't want to skimp on doing that. I've done all the way on the end. I'm not going to bother about these over here. I don't think they're going to add much value, to be honest, in terms of strengthening them. So I'm just going to leave those, and then I'm going to pull the cloth over, and I think it just comes up to somewhere over there, so that's fine. I'm not going to really trim it off. Fill the back. I'm not going to put in drainage. I think some resources suggest that you should put some drainage at the back of the wall, which I don't see much value. Particularly this one is almost a 1-to-1 ratio, so if you did, I suppose it will help, but I just don't see any extra value in that. So, and yeah, so I'm going to flatten the area, and it's still got to go up a little bit, so I might have to sort of taper it into the wall just to get my levels right. And I've got some greenhouses and more planter boxes, so the sort of area over here is mainly for growing vegetables and fruit and so on. Yeah, so if you found that helpful, if you or you just enjoyed it, and please give me a thumbs up or drop me a comment if you have any comments or suggestions. And yeah, thanks again. We'll see you next time. Catch up. Cheers.